Again, my name is Jay Bean. I've lived in Utah, or Idaho or Utah the vast majority of my life. I've done a couple of startups, which I'll talk about today as part of this presentation. And the one that I've been involved with for the last 5 or 6 years is orange soda. And I'll tell you how I got there as well. I just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to go start a company. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. And really, I was actually an economics major. And I took my first job in 1992. I moved to Kansas City, Missouri to do actually marketing for a couple of software companies. And I had planned on just doing it for the summer. And so I packed up my June of 1992, I packed up my Mitsubishi Mirage and basically all that I possessed in this car, and I was moving to Missouri. Actually, I didn't know that I was going to live in Kansas City. I didn't know where I was going to live. And 2 days later, Saturday night, I arrived in Kansas City, and it was another 4 hours to St. Louis, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to drive another 4 hours, and so I stopped there for the night, and a couple days later went and found an apartment, and so that's where I ended up living. And I knew nothing about computers, other than I knew how to use WordPerfect, and I knew how to play a game called Railroad Tycoon. That was kind of the extent of my experience with computers at that point. My older brother, he's about 1.5 years older than me. When growing up, he was the guy who got this is early on, about the little TI-90 or whatever it was, and would take it apart and play all these games and do all this stuff. And meanwhile, I was out probably tearing apart motorcycles or other things that was kind of outdoorsy. And so moving to Kansas City, this job, I was actually, every day I had to go into computer stores, value-added resellers. It may be a Best Buy, it may be an Office Max, and it may be just some real tech shop, and I had to talk and convince them why these products I had were selling and pitching to their customers. So I learned a couple of very valuable things, and why I'm telling this story is because it'll get to the point here in a few minutes. I was not a marketing guy, and I think all of us have different things that we're really good at. And in order to start a business, we need to know that. And so anyway, I want to give a little bit of this history. And so anyway, I learned a couple of very valuable lessons that summer. First was, it's not good to live in Missouri with high humidity and high temperatures with a car with no air conditioning. Second was, I don't like Motel 6, and I used to travel a lot. And third was, I learned that I really liked marketing, and I really liked talking to people. But what it really forced me to do was, it forced me to talk to these computer store employees every single day. And so education, really one of the first points I want to make is education never really ends. I found that I was going in and talking to these guys that a lot of them were very smart. They had a lot of computer knowledge, and I found that if I was going to go in and be credible and try to convince them to sell IBM's OS2 or Lotus products or a Microsoft mouse, I need to at least be smart about those products or kind of the associated products and know as much as I could, in order to convince them that I had it, that I knew what I was talking about, and I needed to be credible. And so that caused me or forced me to learn a lot and to learn the lingo and learn how to communicate and talk to these people. And so that was really kind of, I was halfway joking with the whole humidity thing. I did end up getting a new car that summer, but really that was one of the valuable things that I learned that summer was really how to start thinking about not only kind of what you're doing today, but really the things that kind of surround it, and how important that is as you try to sell an idea. the other thing that I think was really important, I had to be passionate about the products that I was selling. So if I'm going in, by the way, it was actually a good first job. I got $63 for every one of these little store visits, and so sometimes I would do 7 or 8 of these visits a day. And but also, they're coming back and looking, are we increasing sales volume in this market? I didn't have a quota. I didn't have to sell so many units of any of the products that I repped over the next, I ended up doing that for a few years. But I did have to be passionate about those products because I needed to sell product in order to keep my job. And so I think that's one of the other key things that kind of came out of that was is kind of that passion for something anything that you're doing. And I think that a lot of times as we start thinking about starting a business or starting a job or starting a career or even your major, you have to be passionate about that in order to stay engaged and want to kind of move it forward. And so truly, education never ends. While I was in Kansas City, I ended up meeting my wife Jody there, and we got married, had our first child while we still lived in Kansas. Still doing this job, I came across this gentleman, and we started a computer store. So it's kind of my first little teeny venture. Basically, we opened a computer store in 1995 in a mall in Raytown, Missouri, and just during Christmas time, and we sold hundreds and hundreds of computers. But during the day, in October, November, the mall's not necessarily really busy during the day. How many of you guys have heard of Prodigy? Have you ever heard of Prodigy? You've heard of AOL? So AOL was one of the first kind of online services. Prodigy was another one at the same time. Really, I kind of think about them as they really became a way to get online, but before that, they were really almost like early social networks, way before their time. I mean, you would get on and you could chat with other people and other little things like that. And so it was a way to kind of communicate with other people. And so during the day, we would actually be on Prodigy or AOL and just kind of passing time, looking at news or whatever. And that was kind of, so that led into kind of my next little thing that I did was this gentleman, we decided that, hey, this Prodigy thing or AOL, this is really cool on a national basis, but could we do this on a local basis? And so we created what was called CityNet, and it didn't go very far. I didn't have any ownership in it. I just did it with this guy, and it was really fun. And I ended up moving back to Utah. But during this time, we built this localized community where people could actually communicate back and forth, and we could provide offers for small businesses and other things. And so, meanwhile, I moved back to Utah. I was working for a company up in Layton, and my boss, he was my last boss that I've had. My boss was a very unique individual. He was a great guy. I'd worked for him for a couple of years doing this marketing stuff. But now I was actually moving up. So I went from being this sales marketing rep, and now I was actually managing a group of employees. And so one of the things became very clear to me once I became a manager is I worked a lot more and I made a lot less money. It didn't seem right. It doesn't seem logical, but that's what ended up happening. Is I made less money and I had to work a lot more, and we were making this company a lot of money. And I remember kind of the turning point where I decided to go out and start my first real company on my own was when my group of products brought in a few $1 million in revenue during a given year, and I got a $50 or $75, I can't remember exact amount, it was less than 100, I know, bonus at the end of the year. And so so a buddy and I decided that we're going to go out and start a business, and so we give our notice, and the day my second son, he's now 15, was born, was my last day that I actually worked for this guy. And so packed up my stuff, and my buddy came to me and said, you know what, I think that we need a little softer landing, and one of us needs to keep our full-time job. And so he actually never quit. I left and started developing websites for small businesses. And so we got a couple of big accounts in Salt Lake and developed these websites and delivered the websites to the customers, had them online, and the customers would say, well, now what? And so kind of the now what is like, you know, I don't know. I mean, you're on the web. I mean, you have this thing, and so now I had to start figuring out how to get people to their websites. And at the time, there were companies like Alta Vista, Excite, Yahoo, but the only thing that you could buy on those sites at that time was banner ads. And banners, you had to spend at least $3,000 a month for untargeted generic banner ads, which really would do these companies really no meaningful good. It was probably great for the iVillages at the time, so on and so forth, but it wouldn't help these small businesses. And so that led me, again, education never ends. I call this education. I also call it tuition. So like when you I think as you learn and grow, I mean, you're always kind of paying a price for that, but hopefully that learning and growing continues to kind of pay dividends over time. And so kind of a progression from me being an economics major, figuring out that I was really good at marketing and thinking about how I can solve solutions in the online advertising world, from getting people online, now as to the point where now I've created something for someone. How do I bring them more visibility? And so that was the start of, in January of 1999, I started a company called aha.com. And aha was it was really all about online marketing. It was on a local basis. We would help small businesses. How many are familiar with Google AdWords? So that was like kind of the beginning of a Google AdWords type of model. There were 3 or 4 companies that really kind of got into that space. One of them was a company called Go2, which became Overture and got acquired by Yahoo. It was a company called Find What out of Florida. Look Smart. But anyway, aha.com became the 3rd largest pay-for-performance search engine. And we would go out and partner, like KSL, we used to partner their search on their website. But over time, we had tens of thousands of advertisers that came in, and sometimes they were very small local companies, sometimes they were large companies, Microsoft or Priceline or other companies would use our search engine. And then we went out and partnered with big aggregators. So we partnered with the Alta Vistas and the Excites and other companies where we're taking our paid listings and pushing them out on their platform. Aha was actually the first company that started before Google actually started putting any advertisement on their site. We actually, probably a year before that, we were buying all the right-hand banner space on Alta Vista's website and putting 3 or 4 listings on that right side of that page. And so we're kind of early in that space. The company started in '99. In November of 2000, we'd raised about $3.5 million, all from private funding. And in November of 2000, aha was acquired by myfamily.com, and we were going to be the power behind their kind of their portal and kind of that next generation piece that they were actually building out. 4 months later, they came to us and said, "Hey, we know you're part of our group. We're just doing some more fundraising." And anyway, during that fundraising, the company got revalued. That's right when the economy was kind of a bust a little bit, and we got devalued way down. And I mean, so we were acquired for millions of dollars in stock. And when that transaction, when they did that fundraising, we were worth $156,000, and we're like, "Hey, this is not what we signed up for." We went to them. They allowed us to buy ourselves back. And when we left there, basically they ended up with part of the company. When we left there a couple months later, after we unwound the transaction. They owned a piece, but we were profitable. 2 years later, in January or February of 2003, AHA became part of MarchX, and MarchX went public in 2004. It was 180 of us, and 4 of these guys who had already sold a company to Alta Vista, and so anyway, we were about 90% of the revenue when they went public, and so as a result of that, we returned tens of millions of dollars to employees and shareholders through that transaction. So that was kind of a long history how I got to orange soda, and so AHA was very much in the online advertising space. One of the components, or one of the things that we always really focused our efforts on was we mostly sold to national brands. While I started the idea with local advertisers, local advertisers really didn't play a big piece of AHA's history. We did some localization, but localization was still very, very difficult because of geo-targeting, keyword targeting, the way that users search. People weren't searching for Provo dentist at that time. They were just searching for dentist. And so user behavior had to change a lot over the next couple of years to make it really worthwhile for localization and localization that we see today. And so I have 3 things that I look at when starting a business. So I've started obviously a couple at this point. I have 2 in red, 1 not in red. So a lot of times we go out and we think, hey, I'm really passionate about this product, and we think about the product or we think about the service first. And I think about it a little bit differently. I think about market first and people. And when I say people, it's people that we're working with. It's a team. One thing that you'll hear me say a lot is we instead of I. I don't create anything. It's a team effort, and we're all good at something. We're not good at everything, and typically it's a team effort. But I want to talk about product for a second. We may be really passionate. Maybe we're really passionate about gold-plated dog collars, and we come up with this awesome idea, and we get a couple of buddies, and we're all passionate about. Maybe someone is built. I mean, someone in the world's probably building gold-plated dog collars, and that might be a really, really good idea. But we probably don't have a great marketplace to go out and sell. I mean, there might be, maybe Paris Hilton will buy a gold-plated dog collar, but it's not something that there's going to be a huge market for. And so I always think about marketplace and looking at the marketplace, and coming up with a marketplace that's growing, coming up with a marketplace where you have passion, and getting a team that's also passionate about, and a team could be 2 of you, it could be 3 of you. That's a piece that will grow and will morph over time. But if you have the right marketplace, and you have a marketplace that's growing, and you have the right people and the right team that are motivated and have the same passion that you have about building a business, you guys are going to figure out what the right product or service is. And this is the piece that can transition over time. If you start with a product, you may not know, maybe the marketplace kind of changes, and it really, you need as many check marks as you can get, or you need as much, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's hard starting a business. I mean, the vast majority of small businesses, or any business startup, they go out of business. VCs are going to count on 2 or 3 of every 10 that they actually invest money in succeeding. 4 or 5 of them are going to completely go out of business, and a couple are going to come out even. And so most businesses don't make it. So you want to hedge your odds as much as possible. And I'm not one that's saying, hey, I want to let's get 3 or 4 guys, and let's all keep our full-time jobs, and let's do this in the evening, and we want this to be a billion-dollar company down the road. I've not created a billion-dollar company, and maybe I will at some point. But I mean, I want to create something that has value, and so those are the things that I look for at the very beginning. So I think as part of this team effort, If I go back to AHA, I mean, orange soda was very different. We had a company that had started. By the way, the team at Orange Soda, it was not the same. I didn't have the same co-founders that I had with AHA. I did have some key people who worked with me at AHA that I brought into Orange Soda, and we were fortunate because MarchX, the company that we'd kind of merged up with, it acquired, I don't know, this is 3 years later when we started Orange Soda, but they had acquired companies in the East Coast, West Coast, and they decided that they were going to consolidate and they were going to close the Provo office. And so it allowed us to actually bring on a small core team that had worked for me before. And so probably my first 20 employees, I would say 15 of them had worked with us in the past. And so that gave us that foundation. We had people who were passionate about online marketing. We had people who were passionate about the industry. We already knew their capabilities. And so we were able to fill these individual holes that we needed to fill in order to start off in a way that we would be able to see success quickly. We also, I mean, I think the other thing, and I'm a little different. I mean, there's a lot of people who will start a company and they have this grand vision, and they want to build this whole vision before they take it to market, because in order for people to really kind of see their grand vision, they don't want to take it out in pieces. And so we started Orange Soda in October of 2006. And so we had the fourth quarter of the year. We started, and we still did $56,000 or $57,000 in revenue in 2006, even though we had just started. And so we were actually going out and selling our concept to plumbers, to dentists, to doctors. Actually, by the end of that year, we actually signed up a customer, International Truck, that actually had multi-location, and so we had to build product around the customers that we were signing up. But we already had a foundation. We had the right people in place, and so we went from 56,000. In 2007, our first full year in business, we did $1.7 million in revenue. The following year, we did $8.9 million in revenue. And we continued to grow, but it's because of the foundation. It's because we started with a marketplace first. If we went back to 2006, online advertising, local online advertising was really just starting to grow. And the Yellow Page industry was a $15 billion industry at the time. Those yellow books that I got one delivered 2 days ago, and it literally went from the street in the bag into the trash can. I'll tell you a story. Back in 2006, no, this might have been in 2005. I can't remember. It was during the wintertime. I just remember this. We had a snowstorm. I was using my snowblower, and one of the things that caused me to start thinking about local advertisers was I was actually snowblowing, and caught the snowblower. Actually, the Yellow Page book was under the snow and got caught in my snowblower. And so that was one of the things that initially made me start thinking more about kind of the local space. And it wasn't necessarily the catalyst or the reason that we went that route, but it was definitely those books are not cheap to print, and we all get 2 or 3 of them a year. And it's still an $8 or $9 billion industry, but it's in transition. And so, having been in the internet, understanding internet advertising, we really want to build this platform to make it easy for small businesses to get online and to succeed with online marketing. And over the last few years, we've been able to do that. I want to talk about one more thing about people. I forgot to mention this. So when I started Orange Soda, we'd sold AHA several years before, and I think family time, like when you're building a business, I have 4 kids, and in 2004, we actually adopted a daughter, so she's our 4th child, and she was 4 at the time. But family is important, and I think as you're building a business, sometimes work doesn't necessarily get in the way. I think you need to set those priorities, but you end up spending a lot of time traveling. I mean, even right today, I mean, I spend 10 nights a month in hotel rooms somewhere in the country, and so it is very time consuming. And so I wanted us to have some family time, and so about 3 or 4 months before I started Orange Soda, we moved our family to Europe for a year. So almost the first year of Orange Soda's history, I was living in Dublin. I was commuting to Utah for a week a month, and I was spending another 10 days a month with my family on a trip somewhere in Europe. And so we did about 13 of those trips. And so when we talk about people, having a core team and having people that you can trust, that understand your vision and understand the combined vision and be able to take that forward, and trust between these people has to be super high. And so it's not like I didn't work over there. I mean, I would spend time in the day with my kids, and about dinner time, I would go in my little office and I would work until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I would wake up the next morning after my kids were already doing their schoolwork, and so it was actually, but it was a good time to actually bond as a family. And so we need to look for those opportunities, whether we have, probably a lot of us are not going to go to that extreme. It was a really good thing for my kids and my experience, but it really comes back to trusting the people that you're working with. The other thing, there's a few company logos on here. These are all companies in the last 5 years that combined, I've spent thousands of hours with inside of these companies, working with these companies. All these are actually partners or customers of mine. So weeks and weeks and weeks I've spent on a Google campus with Google employees. And I think part of building a company, and on the next, I only have a few slides here, but on the next slide I'm going to talk a little bit about things that I think are important. But one of the things that is, we always hear the word culture, and each of these companies has a very unique culture. And culture is not free meals. It's not daycare. It's not the on-site dry cleaning service. Culture is really the way that we work together as a team. And I think that I think cultures can be very unique. We've been very lucky in both the experience with AHA and Orange Soda to have very good cultures. And part of attracting the right talent and getting people to work with you and to believe in the passion and the idea of what you want to build, a lot of it comes back to, do people love what they do? Do they love who they work with? Those two are much more important than compensation. You have to fairly compensate, but really, I think one of the, and I'll use Google as an example. I've spent a lot of time with American Express as well. Very, very different cultures, but you have a lot of passionate people within each of those companies. But with Google, they do give you, I mean, their employees get 3 meals a day. I mean, they can eat as much as they want. They have free drinks, they have free a lot of things. But really, that fosters so much interdepartment communication. And so rather than people going down the street to Taco Bell or McDonald's by themselves or with a couple of their coworkers for lunch, they're going to a cafeteria, and it may be business development people talking to programmers. Other things, I mean, they're all their programmers, 20% of their time, they can develop whatever they want, which are the new innovations that we see today with, it doesn't really matter what the innovation that Google has come out with. It's all developed internally. It's not, it's not the senior team coming and saying, hey, we want to go build these products. A lot of those products are actually coming from their teams talking together and using that free time to develop new things. And so culture is super important. And so I talk about we again and teamwork. That never takes away personal accountability. I mean, I think that we all have things that we need to be accountable for, and as we build and grow things, really the culture and having something that people are, where they love getting up and going to work, where they're not thinking about, gosh, it's Sunday night and I have to go to work tomorrow. I mean, you need to, whether you're starting a business or you're going to work somewhere, if you're not passionate about it, if you're not excited about going to work, if you're not excited about the people that you're working with, you're in the wrong place. And I think life is too short, and that's something that I've really kind of learned. I've learned a lot from actually companies that I've worked with, but it's also the customers. I think a lot of times you may be really, we'll go back to the gold-plated dog collars, you may be really passionate about that, but also I think one of the things that, and I spend a lot of time doing this over the last few years, but I spend a lot of time with customers. So if I'm in meetings in Orange County, I'm going to find a couple of orange soda customers in Orange County, and I'm going to go visit their locations. Sometimes I'll take them a basket. Sometimes I'll just drop in and just a basket with like a bunch of orange soda stuff. Or I may just drop in and just talk to them about their experience working with us. And so I think that a lot of times when we think about that continued education, whether it be partners we're working with or end customers, there's a lot of things that we can do as business owners in order to make what we do better for everyone that's involved. And a lot of times if we go back and you're sitting in an office and you have this grand vision, this grand idea, and you don't want to tell anyone about it, you don't want any feedback, you just want to build this, those are the companies that sometimes they succeed, but a lot of times they don't. Because going back to marketplace, people, and then the product, you have to have someone that's actually going to take money out of their pocket. So it's, in our case, it's the dentist. Is the dentist going to take $500 out of his pocket to give to you for marketing and believe that you're actually going to produce more money for him or more results for him as a result of giving you that money? He could also take that money and take his family to Lake Powell for the weekend. So I mean, there's a lot of other choices that, in our case, where we work with a lot of thousands and thousands of small businesses, they have a lot of other choices, a lot of other things that they can do with their money, and so it all comes back to knowing that where you want to go, but also knowing that it's not always a straight line. There's one thing on here: learn to say no. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to start at the bottom, then I'm going to go back up to the top. But learning to say no, like orange soda, early on, we were probably a year and a half into the company, and we were doing this marketing for these small businesses. But do you know what? The average small business, their website, I mean, they stink. I mean, not always, but typically, a lot of times they stink. And I remember this customer coming to us wanting to run a paid search campaign on Google, and you go to his website, and it's literally a brochure that he had made, and he had scanned it and put it up. His whole website was actually just an image of that scan, and there's a phone number on it. And so literally, I mean, so anyway, we had this idea. We're trying to drive value for these customers, and at the same time, they don't have the best landing page, or they don't have the best place for us to send this traffic. And so learning to say no. So we decided, hey, we're going to, and this is in, I don't know, late 2007, early 2008, we decided, hey, we're going to start developing websites. That lasted for about 30 seconds. We soon learned that kind of the process, it was not what we were great at. And so learning to say no, and there's some things that are going to distract you so much that it's going to take you away from really what you need to do. And in Orange Soda's case, we did come back to websites 3 years later and developed a great process. And so as part of our marketing packages today, we do create thousands of websites, but it was a different time in our history, and it's a totally different process. They're not the one-offs and so on and so forth. And so maybe there is a time to say yes, but say no. I want to go back up to the top, and I know we only have I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes. And so a lot of times we think about customers first. I think about employees first. And this goes back to, I related a story when I moved back from Missouri to Utah. I worked for this guy, and he taught me this valuable lesson. He didn't care about me. He didn't care about any of his employees. He's out of business. But literally, he didn't care. That was not a priority to him. But if you guys ever are going to start a business, or you're ever managing people, if you can put your employees first, if they know that you have their back, if they know that you care about them, if you care about their welfare. By the way, starting a business or running a business, a lot of times a business from a financial standpoint, you can ask my wife, it comes first. And so like before you get groceries, they get groceries. And so you have to think about things differently, but putting employees first, you treat them right, you treat the people that you work with right. It's a team effort, remember. You treat them right, and they're going to treat your customers right. You don't treat them right, and they're not going to, it's a job. They're in at 8, they're gone at 5, and if the work gets done, it's great. If it doesn't get done, who cares? It's not my problem. I got my paycheck. So relationships is the second one that I think, the second thing that you need to think about, building that network. This is something that I did not believe when I started AHA. Actually, I didn't even know. I mean, I didn't know how valuable networking was. I didn't really realize how valuable kind of relationships were in actually helping you grow your business. AHA was a company, I call it had 9 lives, just because of kind of that history in growing a business. But it's something that I learned a lot during the history of AHA, but it was really key and instrumental when we started Orange Soda. So when I started Orange Soda, I mean, obviously I brought this founding team together. All of our initial funding came from, our seed funding came from internal. In the first year and a half, I raised about $2.2 million, all from just relationships, from network. Later on, because of kind of partnerships and other things, we raised another $8.5 or almost $9 million from strategics. I'll leave that for another day. Strategics would not necessarily be my first choice in funding, but that's the way that we went with Orange Soda, and it was right at the time. But again, because of relationships and because of network, we're able to make that happen in a timely manner without having to spend months on end trying to go out and raise money. Because remember, in the early days, you're building at the same time. I was living overseas, but at the same time you're building, and you have your team, and you're trying to work, and that can be a real distraction. Company culture, again, it's no accident. In fact, the other day, so Orange Soda was acquired 8 or 9 months ago by a company called Deluxe. And part of my role now at Deluxe is helping with strategy and piecing pieces together. And I was having a conversation with someone a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the culture that we had created at Orange Soda. And it is a great place to work. I mean, just the kind of mentality and people's work ethic and all that. And so anyway, he was asking me, did you guys purposefully build this culture this way, or did it just kind of happen? Culture is always going to happen, whether you can build a culture that is great. It really comes back down to having really having clarity around what you want to accomplish and getting people to buy into that. Because it's not like you're going if you just ignore it, it may be a bad culture. Some type of culture is going to develop no matter what, and so there are things that you can do to influence. If it's productivity driven, but you want people to enjoy working with each other. At Orange Soda, we have an AHA as well. We had basketball teams, we had softball teams, we have flag football, we have volleyball. There's a lot of other things where employees are actually interacting not only at work, but they're interacting outside of work together as well. You may do team activities and going to Miller Sports Park and riding go-karts. I mean, there's a lot of other things that you can do that are those fun things. The fun things don't necessarily create the culture, but they actually foster that team environment. And that team environment is what's going to make you win. It's going to help you win. Continuing to learn, I mean, is obviously super important. Again, I call it my tuition. Actually, I do have a big tuition bill that I paid. I actually started in 2005. I bought a domain called Sunglasses Only, and this is my biggest tuition bill that didn't pay off. Anyway, I bought this domain, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I can sell some sunglasses online. It's more like a hobby. I told my wife that it was her job or her kind of responsibility. Over the next 5 years, opened 3 sunglass stores, and in 2008, when the market, the economy crashed, people are not going out and buying $300 pair of sunglasses on a regular basis. And so I ended up closing that business over time. Very, very good learning experience. I think we need those experiences. But just everything you do is not going to work out. But there are a lot of things that you can do. I probably didn't follow my first rule and market. One company owns that whole marketplace. But anyway, those learnings are super important. Just because that's what makes you you. I mean, going all the way back to me getting in my car with all my possessions and driving across the country to take this job really got me to where I am today, and kind of that mentality behind really where I want to be, and the successes that we've had as a team in growing businesses here in Utah. But anyway, I think, I'm going to read this one little thing on culture. Culture is a way of working together towards a common goal that have been followed so frequently and so successfully that people don't even think about trying to do things another way. Again, it comes back to accountability and having clarity around really everyone's roles. And early on, I mean, you may have... I can put together modeling. I can do finance stuff. I'm not the best guy at finance. I'm not necessarily the best guy at operations. So know kind of what you do well, and allow others and trust others to do the things that you can't do. And coming back to culture, I mean, having those processes in place and having and it's not necessarily like training people, but really people, you don't want all the decisions to go through one guy. That's never a way to build a great business. A great business is to leverage the relationships or leverage the team in order to take what your vision is or your dream is and make that a team vision and to grow it from there. And so anyway, that's it.